This is a kind of a tribute conversation about the retirement of Wayne Barnes. And as a fitting tribute, I'm wearing the 2015 kit that the officials wore, that he and Nigel Owens and many others wore out there in the 2015 Rugby World Cup in England. Picked this one up in London at the World Cup store when I finally found it. Anyway, Owens has retired, and I've got some comments here. Nigel Owens has got a few comments. Going to bring it in. Wayne Barnes retires is arguably one of the greatest referees in history. Unfortunately, he suffered a lot of social abuse recently. So let me just run through some of the points here about Wayne Barnes' career. So record-setting English referee Wayne Barnes had announced on Thursday that he was calling it the end of his career. This is just 5 days after officiating the final between the All Blacks and the Springboks. This is what Barnes had to say about his retirement. People often say, you will know when it is the right time to retire. And this is clearly the right time for me and for my family. It's been an incredible journey. Now, Wayne Barnes leaves rugby officiating at the age of 44, having called 111 international test matches. Now, that's a record. And that was between 2006 and the World Cup final in 2023. Over the course of 5 World Cups, he's officiated 27 matches. That's also a record. And that was 6 in 2019 and 6 in 2023. Over the past 20 years, I've been in the middle of some of the greatest rugby matches in history. I have seen some of the world's best players and worked with some of the finest coaches the game has ever produced. Last Saturday, I was privileged to referee the Rugby World Cup final between 2 of the most iconic teams in sport, the All Blacks and the Springboks. That's true. He's spot on. Excellent comments there. He says, my children have missed out on time with their dad for far too long, and I'm now looking forward to family weekends, sports matches, school assemblies, and birthday parties. Well, as someone who served 36 years in the Army can relate to, I know it's like to miss out on family and be away from them. So certainly appreciate his concern there. He finally added this. He said, I'll continue to advocate for referees. He says he wants to ensure match officials across the globe not only have a collective voice, but also the appropriate support network for them and their families, particularly as online abuse and threats become far too regular for all those involved in the game. And I like how he said all those involved in the game. It's not simply the officials that have become the target of this hateful abuse. We've also seen death threats against Cobus Reinach during the World Cup after he played the game that defeated France in the quarterfinal. Death threats against Wayne Barnes, death threats against other players. It's absolutely ridiculous. There needs to be consequences for online behavior, for social behavior. Now, I'm going to get to some comments by Nigel Owens here shortly about his comments regarding social media. And I think that perhaps his may be taken out of context or simply taken too far. There's no reason to end social media. No one has the right to do that. But certainly there should be consequences for people who make criminal threats online. And also the abuse. And that's what they're talking about as well. Now, rugby officials, journalists, pundits, and fans all over the globe have been pouring in their praise for Wayne Barnes' career. And I'm going to read some of these comments. First, refereeing is a tough job, perhaps the toughest in sport. It takes a special person with passion, dedication, and support network around them to be so good for so long. Sir Bill Beaumont, the CEO of World Rugby. And I agree 100%. I've said that over and over again, even when I criticize the call or work of rugby officials, that it is the most difficult officiating job on the planet, hands down. Now, this from Nigel Owens. Congratulations, Wayne Barnes, on a wonderful career, and was always a pleasure on and off the field to work with and be in your company. Welcome to the ex-referee club. Enjoy a well-earned retirement, says Nigel Owens. He says, Wayne will quite rightly go down in history as one of the all-time greatest referees. Of course, that competition is with Jonathan Kaplan and Nigel Owens. But anyway, his contribution to the game on and off the field is a great credit to him, both as a referee and a person. What better way to bow out than in a World Cup final? He's been at the top of his game for a long time now, and I always say you become a better referee when you retire. Nigel Owens. Always good with the quips. Better referee after retire. 13 years working alongside this chap. An incredible ref, but more importantly, a great bloke. Here's to the next chapter. Luke Pierce. Another good official, Luke Pierce. Fair to say Wayne Barnes has been the best rugby referee he's ever had. Best referee rugby's ever had. He's also managed to come across as supremely nice during the whole period and was the instigator of a lot of the good communication we now see among international refs. Go well in retirement. Sam Larner. That's a fair point. Wayne Barnes has been one of those officials that talks to players and explains the situation and also gets in there and, kind of warns players so the game keeps flowing so we don't constantly stop for penalties, warns them before they commit a penalty, which Some people don't like that, some people do, but that's definitely part of his legacy. Wayne Barnes, the finest referee in rugby, bows out at the top. A fabulous career at the summit. His longevity, testament to his excellence and resilience in the face of some truly heinous online abuse. Jamie Lyle. Absolutely. Now, since his post congratulating Wayne Barnes on his retirement, Nigel Owens has commented to sports media, male sports specifically, about this, and he's going to talk about this briefly. Owens has come out with comments about the social media abuse that Wayne Barnes has received, hinting that social media needs to be altered. This is what he had to say to Male Sport. Online abuse is unfortunately something the referees of today have to deal with. It's the world we live in, but it's disgraceful and totally unacceptable. And I agree with you, Nigel. Absolutely. It's one thing to criticize someone. It's also abuse. It's very different to be abusive or be threatening. And those are criminal actions when it comes to threats and bordering on criminal actions for abuse. Owens went on to say, it's not going to change unless we change the rules on social media and make people accountable for their words and actions. It's a toxic place and very, very unfortunate. Now, Nigel Owens, I agree with you 100%, brother. You are spot on. That is exactly the situation. And I'll read this again. And for the trolls out there, little hate wankers running around being abusive to all sorts of people, not respecting who someone is. Wayne Barnes, an incredibly accomplished official. Nigel Owens, incredibly accomplished official. Chris Wyatt, incredibly accomplished former military officer. But the abusive content that people post online, the disrespectful garbage that comes up is unbelievable. I can relate to what Nigel has to say because I've been the target of it simply for telling the truth or sharing analysis or view. And people disagree with you and they get personal and hateful, and there's no reason for that. It's not going to change unless we change the rules on social media and make people accountable for their words and actions. It's a toxic place and very, very unfortunate. And perhaps that's the best quote from Nigel Owens: change the rules to make people accountable. Absolutely. So where is the progress of the investigation by French authorities, counterintelligence, and law enforcement into the death threats issued against Cobus Reinach? Has anyone seen any reports on this? I've been scouring French media. I haven't come across a single report on an investigation or the progress of it, the death threats against Cobus Reinach, or the death threats supposedly uttered against Wayne Barnes in the final. Now, Nigel Owens went on to say the following: I lived in that world and still do now. I got homophobic comments, so I know exactly what it's like. Nigel, brother, I got to tell you, I didn't know you were gay. I never knew you were gay until you were retired. And then you went on social media and kept talking about how you're gay and your partner all the time on your cattle ranch. That's the first time I ever knew the guy was gay. Wow. People really, really must be digging deep into people's lives or really be in their business to worry about their sexuality. Nigel, I don't care about your sexuality, brother. That's your life. And if you and your partner are happy, that's what floats people's boats. That what works for me. So I got no problem. I had no idea. But that just shows you how deeply people get into it. Of course, I knew Nigel Owens as a referee. I followed his career. I really, really admire the work he did on the pitch. He was so professional and so good for so long. But his personal life was not something that even remotely interested me. That's his business. But he's right. He says, it's something I work on in my role now in Wales. There's a culture of keyboard warriors out there. Social media is toxic. Well, that's 100% correct. Social media can be very toxic, very, very disgusting, very vile, very venal, and very unfortunate. And, it's a shame that Wayne Barnes' retirement comes with all of this discussion, but that's the reality, folks. That's what's going on. Now, we don't know if that's what prompted him in retirement. I mean, quite frankly, after 111 test matches, after 27 World Cup matches, after nearly 2 decades of refereeing, running up and down the pitch, the guy's still fit. By the way, he's a barrister, so no wonder he knows how to adjudicate a game because he's a lawyer. But after all that, at the age of 44, in a sport, it seems like a good time to retire, having been the official in the World Cup final. So going out on top is a good idea, but this will forever be tainted by the reality that his wife talked about the death threats against him, and this came up as an issue, and it's unfortunate, but I'm glad that Nigel Owens is standing up against it. Once again, Nigel says, it's something I work on in my role now in Wales. There's a culture of keyboard warriors out there. Social media is toxic. Once again, for those who watch this video, there'll be some nasty people say some nasty things, and that just comes with the terrain. But why? Grow up. Be a man, be a woman, be an adult in the room. If you disagree with something, then say disagree. I started reading a message last night on my previous video in which someone started making comments which made sense, and then just about halfway through this thing that was obviously about 5 paragraphs long, all jammed together with no spacing. Hey, if you're going to write modern standard written English, how about when you move to a different subject or alter the subject, you hit the carriage return and go on to a different paragraph. It just kind of helps people read. But I struggled through reading it, and then about halfway through this long soliloquy, it began to be a personal attack on me, telling me I know nothing about rugby, yada yada yada. Oh, stop, grow up. And then also I saw another one yesterday. This guy says, well, this guy came up on my news feed. He doesn't know jack shit. Yeah, you know what? What do you know? The poster. What do you know? Who are you? He's probably never even played rugby. You know what? I played rugby, and it really doesn't matter if I played rugby. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have done something to be a commentator about it. That's why we have analysts who analyze things. Anyway, back to Nigel Owens. He says, sometimes you wonder whether it's worth being on there. I think everyone, not just in rugby, can think about the impact sending a message on social media can have. Yeah, but there are no consequences, Nigel. You've hit it spot on. You've hit it spot. You hit the nail right on the head. There are no consequences to this behavior. None. Now, there are consequences taking place for people's behavior when it comes to Israel and Gaza here in America, finally. But the only consequences in the past have been to people who were centrist or slightly right of center or on the far right. They have been censored. They have been shut down by social media, tech titans. But no criminal action against these people who commit these heinous abuses. And it's long overdue, long overdue. Anyway, this is not really about that, but it was important to bring up the points that Nigel Owens made because he's spot on. And again, Wayne Barnes, 111 test matches, 27 World Cup games, including 6 in 2019 and 6 in 2023. He goes out arguably as one of the best ever. That's what Nigel says, but Nigel didn't say he goes out as the best ever. To this point, many people widely recognize Jonathan Kaplan as the greatest, and then he retired. Then people recognize Nigel Owens as the greatest official in rugby ever, and he retired. And now Wayne Barnes is retired, and many people are saying he's the greatest official ever, but Nigel didn't. Fair enough. Fair enough. One of the greatest ever. How do you determine who was the greatest? One thing I can say about Wayne Barnes is that I remember years ago, he's ginger-haired and he had that red hair. And it's still there, but boy, there's a lot of gray in there. So maybe it's taking its toll or just age is catching up with him. I know how he feels. Anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Appreciate it. Be sure to hit the like button. Leave a comment behind. If you're an adult in the room, feel free to give a different opinion or a different view on this. If you have a different view on Wayne Barnes' retirement, his career, his success, the reasons behind his retirement, and then also the comments of Nigel Owens and the pundits and journalists who also commented, as well as Bill Beaumont. If you're an adult in the room. If you're not an adult in the room and you're a little hate wanker, then keep it to yourself because nobody wants to hear your cathartic release as you got a good grip on your junk there. So grow up and be a man, be a woman, and stop being a troll on social media. Anyway, congratulations to Wayne Barnes on an incredible career. It's amazing. He will be missed. So who are the next great officials that we're looking at? Well, I tell you, Craig Evans is really good. And also, we've got an official in South Africa that doesn't ever seem to get the respect he deserves. And we'll see if he gets a call up to some of these bigger competitions. And then Luke Pierce is pretty good too. Anyway, folks, thanks a lot. God bless. Take care. And we'll see you shortly on the channel as I've got an interview with Gabriel Kraus talking about South Africa's Employment Equity Act and what that means for South Africans. Cheers.